This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is Thursday morning, and it is running with Alana and Laz. However, Alana is not with us. I think she may be listening in this morning. She worked awfully late last night. As some of you know, she does baby care, and one of the babies kept her up very late last night. And so... Actually, Laz, we hope she's sleeping this morning.
Yeah, I'm sure she is. She'll
I hope so.
She'll listen to the recording.
Yeah,
I would think.
that'd be good.
Although I miss my partner. I was actually thinking about putting a picture of Alana right here on the chair. So I could have my partner there.
Yeah, maybe we should get a cardboard cutout of her.
That's right.
That'd be good.
That's what we should do for all of us. Cardboard cutout. So if we can't make it, we get to sit in the chair there.
Well, we missed you on Saturday for the open house.
Sorry about that.
You were running the storybook,
Christmas
the Christmas
story
run, and you were dressed up as Santa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was fun.
Was it?
It was a crowd. I think there was like 9,000 runners there. Yeah, and they changed. Most of the course was the same, but they do a 5K and a 10K. Started at right on Public Square, right in front of the casino or the old Higbee building, and ran from there. The 5K finishes right in front of the house, and that's the turn for the 10K. So, like I said, 9,000 runners. It was just phenomenal weather for the race. It's the third year now that I've ran the Christmas Story Run. My youngest daughter, Sam, she ran with me. Of course, we do a quick tour of the house, so that was kind of nice. Got our pictures, underneath the sink and everything.
Yeah.
Although, Randy under there versus me under there, that was a little, I didn't fit well. Plus, after running a 5K, you're kind of tired, so I almost felt like I got stuck under there. But yeah, I think, like I said, this year my goal was to do 50 races, and I hit that with this race on Sunday. But, that last month of running, I just kind of felt it, turn 55 and 50 races, and, it's tough. It's tough. So.
But you're not giving up, and that's the good thing. But one of the things we talked about before we went on the air is that, you have to listen to your body, and that really is important. And we're going to get more into that once you introduce your guest, because if we don't listen to our bodies, we're not going to be able to do the things that we want to do. And it's not just running, because if all you're doing is running, you're not going to be enjoying your family.
Right. And
part of your family is your grandson, who you talked about earlier, was coughing all over you, and maybe sort of compromised your immune system this past month.
Slightly, yeah.
Yeah.
I paid for that too, but that's okay. If he's the one that did it, totally fine with that. I'll just I'll work through it.
But you want to enjoy him as well, and so maybe slowing down on the running is okay a little bit, and maybe not making the best times in your running is all right, because as you said, you didn't get the fastest times in the last couple races, but you at least ran. Right.
Well, I mentioned too, I was part of that Hermes Challenge series, so I finished, the last race was Sunday, which was the reindeer run in Lakewood. By that time, I had already really finished first in my age group, so I knew at that point, the last couple races, I'm just going to do it for fun, not really try to push hard, and because when you're running a 5K, and I'm sure, John knows this, my guess, but, when you're running a race and you're running hard, you're just not really aware of like all the surroundings because you're so focused on doing that race. A lot of times people will say, oh, the downtown skyline or running by the Christmas Story House had to be absolutely amazing. Like, well, when you're in that last mile and you're breathing hard and you're just trying to finish that race, you're just not thinking about that,
Absolutely.
Because they asked me about the music too, because, everybody wears music. You don't even hear it, because you're just so focused on that running and breathing and just getting to the finish line. And then once you get to that finish line, you're like, yes, I'm done. So
Absolutely.
It was good.
Well, you mentioned your guest, John, who looks awfully familiar to me. And I have to ask, John, were you at the pumpkin run?
No.
Up
No.
in Brunswick?
When was that?
In Brunswick?
No.
Or October,
No.
sorry.
No.
Okay. Because I've been at a number of runs. I haven't run any 5Ks yet, but there are quite a few people my age and older who run. And so I'm assuming that you are right around my age, and I'm lucky enough to be 67 and a half years young.
He must have been a good-looking fella, whoever he was.
Well, you are a good-looking fella.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
No modesty by this guy, huh?
So how long have you been running?
I've been running for 60 years.
60 years.
60 years.
So you started out of the womb?
I'm 73.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Wow.
I just,
It's like the fountain of youth.
when I met John was probably, I think, probably 3 years now. I met him through the Medina County Roadrunners Club, which I became a part of. And it's right around when I injured my Achilles. And, John posts a lot of stuff about nutrition and shoes, what type of shoes to wear, just different things, and kind of throws it out there for the community, mainly in Medina County, things that they should be thinking about. John is an avid reader. I'll let him, talk about those things. But I just reached out to John about, my Achilles injury and kind of what he had thought, and he gave me some good advice and everything, and from shoes, like I said, to nutrition, to balancing the running and heart rate training, all these different types of things. He even did a session for the Medina County Roadrunners at one of their monthly meetings about heart rate training. That to me is, because I'll let him talk about that. But with the heart rate stuff, I had mentioned it in one of my shows with Alana, was that people don't realize when you're doing heart rate training and you're supposed to stay at a certain percentage of your max heart rate, you almost feel like you're walking. Like, well, I can't be doing good. This can't be good for me
Yeah.
just to be walking and keeping my heart rate at this certain level. But they don't realize if you're working hard all the time, it actually has a counter effect on your physical being and what you do, because you're not giving yourself time to recover. So I truly believe a lot in the heart rate training and keeping keeping yourself at a certain level. So, but like I said, John was instrumental in kind of talking me through a little bit of my injuries. So, John, do you want to kind of talk about your background? I know, like you said, you've been running for 60 years now, and
It's hard to believe I've been running for 60 years. Something wrong here.
Wow.
it goes by like this, doesn't it?
And I'm just going to start running.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what? You're never too late to start
Well,
running.
and-
Absolutely.
And that's what I truly, truly believe.
When I started running in 1958, freshman in high school, I started road running actually in 1960, and I became friends with a guy named Dr. George Sheehan. I don't know if you ever
I've heard the
of him.
name, yeah.
You heard of the name? He's written probably 24 books. He's dead now. But he had a hiatus between his college years and his road years. So there was about a 20-year gap in there where he was in medical school and otherwise pretty busy. But he was a very good college miler. He ran for Manhattan College in New York City, in the Bronx. And anyway, there was a 20-year gap in there. And he came back. It took him maybe 6 to 12 months to come back to the point where I could barely beat him. And I was 18 years old, and he was like 45, 50. So that hiatus didn't bother him much, apparently.
And I'm sitting here worried about not running from December 3rd through the end of the year, thinking I'm going to lose so much fitness.
Forget about
But
it.
I think it helps when you give yourself that time to
Yeah.
rest. You come back stronger.
Sure.
So.
Alberto Salazar won the New York City Marathon and actually held the world record in the marathon at one time. He's a coach of the Nike Oregon project. And one of his athletes is Mo Farah. And Mo Farah takes 2 months off every year. And that's pretty common for Kenyan runners, actually. But, of course, Mo Farah is a Brit. But he takes, he runs in 6-month cycles. And 1 month of those 6 months is completely off. He does nothing. Gains 20 pounds, loafs around, lies on the couch, gets fat. Does nothing, and
My
then
life
comes
every
back.
day.
Yeah. And this guy has like 4 Olympic gold medals. So, matter of fact, this year I took July off. I was feeling kind of run down, so I took the whole month off, did nothing. Came back. In high school, actually, I took 10 weeks off, the whole summer. And came back within a week or two, I was fine and dandy.
Do you think that has part of that is, the youth, it seems like it's easier to come back versus when you're older, because I think what happens when you're young, you can come back and almost jump right back into what your training was.
Yeah.
But when you're older, I think that's where a lot of people make mistakes. Because one of the things on the road runners, reading different posts, I had seen a few people that, just started running. And their goal was to do a half marathon within like 6 months.
Oh, yeah.
And then all you read is like they're injured.
Sure.
Because they're trying to jump up in that mileage so fast.
I guarantee an injury in that case, yeah.
Absolutely.
Actually, with age, what happens is that it's tougher to recover. Recovery takes a lot longer.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I used to be able to run doubles, run twice a day. But now that I'm 73, Jeff Galloway, who's another famous author, he's an Olympic marathoner. He recommends for guys my age that we run once or twice a week.
That's it.
That's it. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, that can't be more than 10 miles a week, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't think.
Yeah.
And, most
at my age.
Well, a lot of your running though is speed work, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're
and
mainly doing speed versus slow distance or anything.
I'm kind of an aberration because people say, "Oh, you're 73. You should be, walking around the block 2 or 3 times." But I'm running probably 5 or 6 days a week, and it's almost all speed. So my typical workout, if you want to hear it,
Sure, absolutely.
I go over to the rec center. I love the rec center, Medina Rec Center, and they have great treadmills over there. They have a Woodway treadmill, which I got curious one time and I priced it out on the internet. It's a $20,000 treadmill.
Wow.
It's the top of the line treadmill. So I get to use this top of the line treadmill, and to give seniors a break on the fees, it's $114 a year for me because I'm over 65. So for $114,
that's a good trade-off, John.
Yeah.
So for $114 a year, that's barely 30 cents a day.
Right.
I'm on this $20,000 treadmill. You can't take a shower for 30 cents.
Right.
Right? So anyway, I get over there on the treadmill, and I always warm up, of course. It's very important to warm up and to cool down because the body doesn't like shocks. And
What's your warm-up consist of?
basically, it's just a very slow 5-minute jog,
Okay.
just a little bit above a walk. And then I get into my workout. I don't have any set schedule, but it works out to be pretty much the same thing every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's interval work. So I'll sprint for 200 meters and then walk for 100. Sprint for 200, walk for 100. And I do that for about 40 minutes. And then I cool down for about 5 minutes. Just walk around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get into, I use the machines over there. Use the leg press, the hip abductor machine. It really pays to strengthen your hips.
Yeah.
Because the hips act like kind of a shock absorber. And if you don't have any muscles in your hips, then all of the weight of the run goes right down to your joints. And that's how you get injured.
Sure.
So I've been working on the hip abductor machine for about 3 years. The leg press, and I've got about 4 or 5 other machines that I use over there.
That's good, because one thing I noticed too, the older that I've gotten, is that it takes me much longer to warm up. And a lot of times before a race, people will just not even warm up. And I think what causes injuries too is they overstretch before the race. You see people just doing these, crazy looking stretches before
I don't
a
do
run.
any stretching at all.
Yeah, that's what they tell you, that it should be more static than anything. Maybe some jumping jacks, swing your legs or whatever to hopefully loosen up the hips and things like that. But I think what I think ultimately caused my Achilles injury was overstretching. The hands up against the wall, stretch your calves out as much as you can, and overstretching the Achilles before a race.
Sure.
Part of it too is just jumping to hill running or whatever. But in shoes, it's one of the discussions you and I have had a lot about, is the different types of shoes to wear. So.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I learned, because I just joined a gym, because I have silver sneakers, and so,
Oh, yeah.
you know, which is a great thing, especially for seniors who want to, you know, get their workout in. Silver sneakers basically gives you free membership just about anywhere. So I thought I had running shoes. I was so excited. Got these about 2 years ago after a leg injury, but I was told that they were too stiff for me. But I went in and they looked at my shoes and they said, "You can't use these on the treadmill." And I said, "Why? They're, you know, running shoes." They said, "No, they're trail shoes, and they will ruin the treadmill." And I looked at them and I said, "But they were sold to me as running shoes." And they said, "Too bad." So I was glad that I actually had gone in, you know, my first appointment there with wearing the shoes.
Yeah.
Because I would have gone in and worn the shoes, and if I would have ruined the treadmill, I would have had to have paid a price for them. So now I know, you know, what to look for, which before even doing this show, you know, with you and Alana, I didn't know the difference between shoes. I mean, I just thought tennis shoes, walking shoes, trail shoes, I thought they were all the same. And obviously they're not.
The wrong shoes can really damage you. Back in the old days, early 60s, when I started road running, we didn't have the big, thick, cushioned, padded shoes that you have today. And the problem with the big shoes is that the foot doesn't have what's called proprioception. Proprioception is communication between the nerve endings in the soles of your feet and your brain. So every time you take a step, the brain gets a message as to what you're trying to do, where you are on the earth. But if you've got a lot of padding down there, got a lot of rubber between you and the road, that message is muffled, and it's not a clear message. So the brain doesn't know what you're doing, what you're trying to do. It tries to adjust to what it thinks you're doing, but you've got so much rubber down there that it can't tell. So that's how you get injured. The brain tries to adjust as you're walking and running along, but sometimes it guesses right, sometimes it guesses wrong.
Right.
The concept of proprioception is probably best explained by if you put your hand on a hot stove, what happens? You don't stop and think, oh, am I going to burn myself, or should I pull my hand back, or I'm starting to smell smoke. This is a bad sign. No, you put your hand down and boom, right away within a nanosecond, you snap back, because the message goes to the brain that you're in trouble, and the brain tries to protect you from burning yourself, and it adjusts your muscles, and your arm gets snapped back and whatever. That's proprioception. But when you have too much rubber down there on your shoe, it muffles that communication, and again, the brain doesn't know how to react. In the old days, we didn't have big, thick shoes, and we didn't have nearly as many injuries as you have today. The shoes that we had were just like a bedroom slipper, you might say, just a thin piece of leather, and that was it. No heel, no arch support, no nothing, basically, just protection from glass and rocks and so on.
It reminds me of that.
We had no injuries.
It reminds me of the movie Prefontaine that I saw, and was it Bill Bowerman who created Nike? His original shoes that he made on his wife's waffle iron.
Oh yeah.
Poured rubber in the waffle iron.
Yeah.
That was the shoe. That was the sole of the shoe.
We didn't even have that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had
that was the good thing. Right?
Yeah, that was the high tech.
Yeah.
We had a thin piece of leather, and I swear to God, nobody was injured.
Yeah, that's what I was because I remember you and I having that conversation, because there's so many varying degrees of shoes out there that people don't, because I need a much more flexible shoe, and I was kind of running in the wrong thing. I just turned around and went to a pretty basic flat Nike running shoe anymore, and it feels great. I don't feel injured at all. I feel I feel good. Now on longer runs, I'll wear a little bit of a thicker shoe. But I think what happens a lot of times is people get used to wearing one specific shoe, like I can't live without, whether it's a Nike or Brooks or Adidas, and they try to stick with it. But they don't realize that from model to model to model, there's varying degrees of differences. Yeah. They could go the exact same running shoe that they had, the newer model could be stiffer. So, they wear it, they get injured, and they're like, I don't know why I'm injured. It's the same shoe that I've always. No, it could be different.
Right.
The heel to toe could be different, and they don't realize maybe it's a lower drop, so it's stretching their Achilles a little bit more. All these things that they need to think about. But I like John's, comment to me was always, back in the day, we didn't have all these different running shoes, and we didn't get injured like we are injured now.
And we didn't do any stretching either.
Right.
Now, do you use an orthotic in your shoes?
I don't.
You don't?
No, because I always kind of felt like, my gait is actually pretty good, because when I did injure my Achilles, they put me on that treadmill test to see how my gait was. It's actually pretty good, so I don't really need anything for that. But no, I always kind of feel like if you wear something that changes your natural running, that is what actually causes the injury.
That's right.
And there's always a shoe out there that can compensate for this or that. But I think just, practice on, like John does all kinds of speed work. Speed work actually, I think, helps your mechanics because it teaches your brain to run how you really should. I mean, we've been running for millions of years. But it seems like everybody's trying to change their mechanics on how to run more efficiently and all these things. But it's like when you look at even watching, professional marathoners or watching those races, you watch them run in slow motion. Virtually, when you see that lead pack of about 7 to 10 runners, their form, they all look the same because they just, they do this all the time and, they practice at it. But, obviously a lot of those guys look tall, but most of them are fairly short and thin. That's probably why they can run pretty good.
Yeah.
But, again, I think a lot of people spend so much time worrying about the shoe when they probably need to worry more about the mechanics and just get a basic shoe,
Yeah.
Go out and get like an old Nike if you can find it on eBay from 1970.
A good shoe today is hard to find.
It is, yeah.
It is. You try to find a minimalist shoe today, and you'll be out of luck.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I bought a lot of shoes a few years ago, so I've got a good supply for me.
As long as your foot doesn't change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had plantar fasciitis a few years ago, and I tried everything. I bought all kinds of gadgets and went to doctors, and nothing helped. So finally, it came down to the shoes, and I've fallen into that trap of wearing a big shoe at that time. So I figured maybe the shoe is causing the plantar fasciitis. So I got into a nice light shoe. Asics Piranha is what I used.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, when I made that switch, I couldn't run at all. So I started running in the Asics Piranha, and I could only run for 5 minutes the first day before the pain kicked in. I said, okay, so 5 minutes. Second day, I went a little longer. Third day, a little longer. After a couple of weeks, I was running fine and dandy. I was running up for 2 hours with no pain.
Nice.
Just because I made that change into a minimalist shoe.
Mm-hmm.
I got away from the big clunky cushion shoes.
Do you do any barefoot running at all?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? Because I've read a lot of stories about the benefits of, not all the time, because that's the other thing people do is they're running in a stable shoe and a highly cushioned shoe, and then they just all of a sudden I'm going to go out and run 2 miles barefoot or in a minimalist shoe, and they get injured because their body hasn't had a chance to adapt to that.
You got to ease into it eventually, gradually. They don't allow barefoot running at the rec center.
Yeah.
I found that out through experience. Das ist verboten here.
Yeah.
Mama don't allow no barefoot running around here. Mama don't allow no barefoot running around here. I don't care what Mama don't allow, going to run barefoot anyhow.
Well, a good place to do it is a golf course.
Yeah,
because the grass is,
Well, pick any high school track, and you can run on the infield on the grass.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can do that. Or sometimes I go out to Hinckley, and I run the horse trails out there barefoot. That's
just got to watch where you're running if you're running the horse trails.
Well, that's a problem. But a lot of people think that when you take off your shoes, you go blind. That's not true.
Yeah.
You can still see what's ahead of you.
That's true.
Right? So, yeah, Hinckley's very good. I run out at Leicester, too. Leicester Rail Trail, do you know where that is?
Not sure where that is.
That's out on 18. It's about a 10-minute drive from Medina Square. Problem running barefoot out there is that there's lots of rocks out there. It's kind of a gravelly kind of thing, and that's tough.
Yeah.
The ideal surface for barefoot running is Hinckley horse trails, which is dirt.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Plus, you got the hills in there too. You feel like a Kenyan almost out there.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I was thinking when you're talking about barefoot running, because, you know, the Africans are, you know, run barefoot, and they seem to have that longer stride and faster running pace.
Sure.
You know, and is that because they can feel the ground easier?
Well, frankly, it's because they can't afford a $200 shoe.
Well, okay, I get that too. You know, but I would think feeling the ground, you know, is more stabilizing than in a shoe that maybe your foot is slipping and sliding in. I know when I decided that I was going to do the Couch to 5K and I started walking, even in my trail shoes. I live in a condo subdivision and we have trails, and I started walking the trails, and I wasn't thinking about that in the fall the trails were going to be slippery.
Yeah.
But I was watching where I was walking, and I was realizing that I had to pay attention to the ground. I had to consciously feel the ground under my feet as I was walking. And it was the first time, I think, in my entire life that I had to concentrate on what the ground felt like, which was amazing to me. But at the same time, I kept thinking, if I was running, would I actually pay attention to that?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Oh, definitely you would. The gaze is probably about 40 yards ahead. So you're running along and you're anticipating what's coming up. And I remember one time I was running at the track at Claggett Junior High in Medina. And I was doing some barefoot running on the infield, on the grass. And there were two students from across the street, Claggett Junior High, and they were actually running on the track. So I said, well, maybe I'll run on the track too, barefoot. I got on that track. It was just pins and needles. It's impossible to even walk on that. So I stopped them and I said, how do you run on this track like that? Oh, no problem. No problem at all, because they're used to it, doing it every day.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of the when we had talked about the shoes, and I had read an article about Ed Whitlock, and I'm sure you know who that is. He was just recently passed away, but I think at 85 years old, he ran a sub 3 hour marathon at 85. Sub 4?
Yeah, 3:56 or something.
At 85 years old.
Yeah.
You know, and the shoe he was wearing looked like it was a shoe from the 70s, and I think it actually had tape on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But he used to cut across the shoes at certain points to make it just a little bit more flexible.
Yeah.
He said, I've had this shoe for like 20 years, and that was the shoe that he ran in. You know, 85 years old. When I did the reindeer run on Sunday, there was a gentleman there, 86 years old, ran the race, and he ran it in, I think, like 29 minutes, which is, you know, sub 10-minute miles for a 5K at 86 years old. I told, and there was a lady there too, I think she was like 72, and she ran in 26 something, which was, you know, 2 minutes faster than I was. I looked at my daughter, I'm like, I just feel embarrassed now, you know. Now it's few and far in between when you get, you know, speed of runners at that age, but it can be done, you know, as long as you stay with it. It's all about consistency, I think.
Yeah.
You know, you just can't flip-flop. You know, 1 year gain 40 pounds or whatever. Younger, yeah, because it's easier to drop. But the older you get, the metabolism slows way down. You don't drop the weight as much. Yeah. It's just all about consistency.
Well, and I think one of the things that we've talked about, too, is that many of us are doing it not necessarily to win the race, to be number one. we're doing it to be number one for ourselves, to stay in shape, to feel good about ourselves. When I chose to do this, it's to prove to myself that I can. When I do my first 5K, it's to prove that I can get across that finish line, whether I crawl, roll, or run across it. And when I first talked to Alana about running back in July, my first comment was, why the heck would anybody ever want to run? It looks painful. It looks tiring. You look miserable. And yet now, preparing for it, I mean, it excites me, okay? Riding my stationary bike every single night, 6 to 9 miles a night. I can't wait to do that every day. I mean, I'm energized, and walking that treadmill, I'm energized. Yeah. Okay, I can't be out in the cold walking because, of certain physical ailments. Come the spring, I mean, it's going to be like the biggest thing for me to be outside. My first real walk in the rain this fall. I took pictures of myself looking like a drowned rat because it was exciting for me, experiencing nature. And so I can understand why you've been running all these years.
Yeah. When you're in shape, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But when you're not in shape, it's not so much fun.
But getting in shape, and we all can do it.
Yeah.
Okay, it takes one step.
Yeah.
And then a second step. And we all don't have to do 5Ks, okay? Yeah. We can all walk to our mailbox.
And there's so much information available today. I mean, YouTube, books, there are thousands of books on this subject. There's, lots of help.
What's your advice to, the older runner, somebody that really hasn't had a lifetime of running and maybe want to start to get into a program? Because to me, the human body is just phenomenal. It repairs itself from any type of injury as long as you kind of take care of yourself. But even the guest we had on last week, Dominic, he started running at a little bit older age, and he's running low or high 16 minutes for a 5K, and he never really did high school running or anything like that. So, I mean, it can be done. Maybe that's few and far in between, but, just people that are, sitting on the couch, maybe listening and thinking, you know what, I want to get out and try that. What would you, say to somebody like that?
I tell you, it wouldn't hurt you to do the Lydiard program. Lydiard broke his year in 2 parts, kind of like Salazar. And the first 3 months or so, nothing but long, slow distance. So maybe an hour a day, up to 2 hours a day, but very slow.
Mm-hmm.
Wear the heart rate monitor, keep it under 75% of max, which implies that you're going to be doing a lot of walking, but it's going to keep that heart rate down, and you're going to be able to cover the distance or spend the time out there. So 3 months of that. Then Lydiard recommends like 4 weeks of hill training where you cut back on the distance, but you increase the intensity in terms of hills. So you run like 2 to 3 hill workouts a week.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sprint uphill, walk downhill, sprint uphill, walk downhill. And the purpose of that is to get your muscles, your leg muscles, primarily in shape for the upcoming speed work. And the last part is 10 weeks of speed work, and that implies a couple of times on the track a week, doing 200s, 100-yard dashes, that kind of thing. And then you have the race of the year at the end of that 6-month period. Could be a marathon, could be a 5K.
Right.
So that's a good approach. But I kind of like your idea of racing every weekend.
Yeah.
But during the week,
I don't know about that.
but during the week you got to cool it.
Yeah. See, for me, I'm very much a low distance runner. I will maybe run at the most 20 miles a week, and I think part of that is because I do a lot of races. and I don't do any speed work or anything like that, or hills, just because even during the races, you're going to find hills in a lot of the races that you do, 50%. Most of one I do is downtown Cleveland, so you're running up the West Third Hill or, whatever hill it ends up being. So I just kind of always felt like the amount of races that I do, if I even do like speed work throughout the week, that's just going to be too much, and my body is just not going to be able to recover.
Yeah, you're going to break down if you do too much speed work.
Now, I think 50 was probably too many because, like I said, I know that last month, probably the last 4 to 6 races, I just did not have it.
Sure.
I knew as soon as I hit the starting line, I'm like, this is just not going to go well.
You were burned out.
Yeah.
Just take a month off.
Yeah, and that was one thing I read an article too, probably, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago. They talked about runners burnout, and people don't realize, and people had said, just something's wrong with me. I'm tired. I don't have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
I can't do my runs like I used to. They go to the doctor. They get all kinds of blood work done. Everything looks normal, and it all ended up being most likely as runner's burnout, which they say could take almost like a year to recover from that.
I'm a great believer in measuring things. In management, they say if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I have what's called a pulse oximeter. Pulse oximeter, matter of fact, I have it with me. The pulse oximeter allows you to take your pulse first thing in the morning while you're still in bed, so you don't get up. And here it is right here. You stick your finger in there, and it gives you your pulse while you're in bed.
Mm-hmm.
So my resting pulse rate is 47. So if I see one morning that I'm at 57, I take that day off.
Right.
Because I know that the heart is working too hard. I'm way over my resting pulse rate, and I need to take some time off. And it's worked out pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that because I was kind of doing the same thing with the heart rate monitor, and knowing that because my heart rate's relatively low. A few years back, I went to just normal doctor's visit. My resting heart rate was like 42. It's like,
oh, wow.
Something's wrong with you. So they order an EKG, and I'm telling them like I'm a runner. It's probably going to be lower than most. They wanted to do like the treadmill test, everything, and they did because they kind of scared me too, Wow. And it ultimately ended up being that my heart rate is just naturally lower than people. Even my max heart rate is naturally lower, but
that's a big advantage.
Yeah, and but. They scare you, and they scare most people by saying that, not realizing that. And this was probably like 15 years ago, and I was running a lot then. So now I know. I always tell the doctor, new doctor, whatever, I'm like, hey, I'm a runner. My heart rate's naturally going to be lower. It has dropped below 40 at times when I'm laying in bed, and I have my heart rate monitor on. So, but I know this, and I know that's just generally what's going to happen with me. But you're right, because if I'm measuring it and it's typically in the low 40s, and then sometime maybe in the low 50s, I know I'm working too hard, and I got to take some time off to help recover.
Absolutely.
So
I had an employee physical one time, and I was on the job about 1 or 2 days, and I got this panic call from employee health. Employee health had drawn blood and given me a physical and so on. And the nurse said, you've just had a heart attack.
Oh, my gosh.
You've just had a heart attack. I said, what do you mean?
I'm still here.
I'm healthy as a horse. I run, 100 miles a week or whatever, And she says, oh, you're a runner. Oh, okay. That explains everything. Because what happens is when you run, your muscles break down. And, of course, the heart is a muscle.
Yeah.
So you're going to have some breakdown in your heart muscle, which would tell the doctor, holy cow, this guy's just had a heart attack.
Right.
So
that's that perfect example. I went to a couple years ago, just went to my doctor, and she did an EKG, and she's like, she goes, you look like you just had a heart attack or something. I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I felt fine, other than I was taking some allergy meds that caused my heart to palpitate a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I told her that. I said, I took some allergy meds, and I think my heart's palpitating from it. It's like, no. She goes, I think there's a problem here. So she sends me to the main campus to have the treadmill test done, the stress test hooked up to all the monitors and everything. As soon as I get on there, the technician, I'm telling her, what the doctor had said, and she's like, oh, she goes, they just don't know how to read the EKGs. You're fine. I'm like, okay, so I probably spent 2 days here worried that I've got a damaged heart or something like that. Because one of my goals was I wanted to run another marathon, but I'm kind of done with that. I've ran 2 and I'm okay with that. But I at least wanted to get looked at to say, everything looks good. Just do some appropriate training, and it was just, I don't know. That's why I say you got to go to the, know your body. Go to the appropriate doctor for what you're trying to do. But I also would just love to, if I could find like just a holistic type approach that looks at everything that you do. Yeah. Because there isn't, I don't think there's a lot of, more maybe now, but locally here, we don't have a lot of sports medicine doctors that really know a lot about running. Yep. So
everybody's into their own specialty.
Yes.
I used to be, I was a clinic administrator of an Air Force hospital in Albuquerque, Kirtland Air Force Base. And a patient came in to see me one time. I have no medical background, just administrator. We just happened to be chatting. And he had this paper bag with him. And paper bag had about 15 or 20 medicines in there. I said, holy cow, what's this all about? Oh, I go to the cardiologist for this, and I go to the urologist for that, and I go to this, that, and the other. There was no one doctor looking at the big picture.
Right.
And do these medicines have any interactions between them? He didn't know.
Right. That's I mean, technically, I think that's what the primary care doctor is supposed to do. But it is so hard to have your care coordinated like it should be. Back in the day, even when I was a young kid, you went to the one doctor for virtually everything. And they kind of knew your whole history. So I mean, I really am a believer in that. At least having that one doctor that can kind of manage everything. But I don't know. It's like we were talking earlier. These days, unfortunately, a lot of what dictates the care is what the insurance company is willing to pay, So, because I've actually had a doctor tell me that no, you can't have this test because the insurance says they're not going to pay for this because you have to have this, this, and this done first. He goes, but ultimately we are going to do this test. We just need to have, proof that we've tried these other things. I'm like, so it actually costs more because we can't just skip and go right to this test.
We talked about Ed Whitlock before. Ed Whitlock is a friend of mine. I went up to see him. I ran the Mississauga Marathon in Toronto a few years ago, and I went over to his house. We had a long chat. And he hasn't seen a doctor since World War II, or hadn't at that time.
Right.
He's dead now.
Right.
But he went to 86, pretty good.
Yeah.
And no doctor between World War II and 2 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I wonder what kind of foods and stuff that he eat.
No special diet. I asked him specifically about that. Nothing.
Yeah, but there was probably certain things that he probably stayed away from, though. I'm sure he didn't go to like McDonald's every day to eat like burgers and fries. Maybe he did. I don't know.
He was thin as a rail. I'll tell you that. I don't know what his percentage body fat, but I bet it was down around 3%.
Well, it's interesting how you were talking about, this person had a bag full of medication and saw numerous doctors. Today, with everything being computerized, you go to the doctor, and I'll give an example. I see doctors both at Cleveland Clinic and University Hospital, and when you go to the doctor, they ask to go over your medication, and both hospital systems do talk to each other, and they can verify, oh yeah, you're on these medications, you're on these medications, so they know what medications you're on, but they don't really confirm to say that, you shouldn't be on these 2 different medications. Right. Okay. Occasionally a doctor will catch it and they'll say, do you know you're taking 2 of the same medications? And it's like, why aren't you catching this? Why isn't this red flag going off? Why is it when I'm going to the pharmacy to get this filled? Why isn't the pharmacist catching it? Okay. Absolutely. I thought that's what this was supposed to be about. Why isn't my insurance company catching it? hate to get on this bandwagon right now, but if I'm trying to be healthy, if I want to go running, okay, like I said, I went to my doctor and I said, I want to run. Originally, my doctor said, oh, yeah, go run. And I said, well, but the rod from my femur injury is hitting my knee. Oh, just get over it. It was like, get over it. So I finally found another doctor who said, maybe a little bit of physical therapy. Let's try to figure out if it's really the rod or what it is. Yeah. It wasn't the rod, okay? The bands in my leg were tight, okay? Yeah. I needed physical therapy to get through that. Once I did, after 2.5 years, I wasn't limping anymore. I could walk. Walking means I can run. I mean, how terrific is that? But a doctor couldn't figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay? I had to switch doctors because I had to talk it through to somebody. Yeah. The original doctor wanted to give me more pain meds because the rod was hitting my knee. Yeah. And it wasn't the rod. So we as individuals have to discuss these things, and that's why we bring them running with Alana and in-laws. That's why we bring people like yourself on who can talk about your experiences so that our listeners can hear, you know what, maybe I have to have a discussion with my doctor. Maybe my doctor isn't listening to me. Maybe my doctor is going to have a new viewpoint after me talking to him or her.
And you can do a lot for yourself, too. Don't be shy about asking the doctor or even correcting the doctor.
Exactly.
I'm not worried about saying to the doctor, hey, doc, I don't happen to have any medical problems at the moment, but I wouldn't have any problem saying, hey, I read on WebMD, da-da-da-da-da-da, and see what his response is. Because he's working for you. It's not the other way around.
And they can't know, and your doctor can't know everything, okay? Your doctor is busy, seeing how many patients a day, how long ago did they go to school, okay? And sometimes we have to remember those things too, that it's not that they're not keeping up with their education, but they went to school how many years ago? Right. They're not getting updated on everything every single day. And some of the things they're getting updated on, it's because of the medical supply people who are coming in and bringing it to their attention. So that's why we love having people like yourself coming in here and, providing us with new options, new challenges. And again, if it weren't for Alana and Laz encouraging me that, at my age, I can run.
Sure.
And seeing the fact that you've been running for 70 years?
60.
60 years.
Please, I'm not that old.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Highly insulted by the whole thing.
But besides running, you said you're going to play the ukulele?
I'm going to play the ukulele.
Do you play any instruments now, though?
And not run at the same time.
I'm not running at the same. Well, that's a good thing.
Hello, that's an idea.
Hey.
Do you play any other instruments now, or is that going to be the first one?
That's the first one.
Nice.
Yeah.
So why the ukulele?
A friend of mine plays the ukulele. And I watched him, and I figured, anybody can do this. So, no, it's like brain surgery. It's rocket science. The whole thing with the chords and moving the fingers and singing at the same time, very difficult.
I think,
but it's a challenge. What the hell?
I think that's really exciting.
And I don't have to pay any entry fees.
Whoa.
And I'll never get plantar fasciitis out of it.
You might get fingeritis or whatever it's called.
Well, it will help, keep you from getting arthritis in your fingers because your fingers will keep active, which is really
That is so true. That is just to keep yourself, keep your even walking, because like when I'm taking just these 3 weeks off, I could feel different things starting to tighten up because I'm not, exercising like I should. Now, ultimately, it's going to help me recover or whatever, but you just got to keep moving.
Well, so when you're saying that you're taking 3 weeks off, you're not taking 3 weeks off and just sitting on the couch.
Pretty much. No, I'm just not, I'm actually, because, favoring the, the injury or whatever, I'm trying to take 3 weeks off from any type of running or even walking, because part of that motion, helps aggravate, what I had or whatever. So I just think I need to just stay away from that. I wanted to, maybe do some swimming or whatever, but my mind's just telling me, what, just don't do anything for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Just, again, it was like the fitness thing. Gosh, I'm going to lose so much fitness. I'm going to lose so much time off my 5Ks. No, it just doesn't happen.
You'll come right back, yeah.
Yeah.
There's muscle memory,
Yeah. One of the things that you were talking about too was, we were talking about it before, but Dr. Leo Kormanek, who's my sports therapist doctor, he had talked to me about, it's called a Zufu, it's SUFU mat, and it's got like the little plastic spikes on it. Not, it's not going to cut into your skin or anything, but almost like an acupuncture type thing. And he told me, try to stand on it for 2 minutes. And the idea is that your feet actually has the most nerves of your entire body. Yep. And barefoot, just standing barefoot on the ground, helps you be one with the earth. Now, I don't, think that way all the time, but it's true.
Yeah.
Your shoes actually block the sensitivity from, your body to the earth. So I stand on this mat for, I can't do it for 2 minutes. The first time I tried it was like 30 seconds. I had to get off of it. Huh. But, I actually think that helped, heal my Achilles because it was bringing that sensation down to my feet. And I also lay on the mat too. And it just helps with the nerve endings, helps bring blood flow to that particular area. Yep. They say the Achilles is like almost the worst area of your body that just doesn't get any blood flow. Yeah. And blood is actually what heals your body because it brings the oxygen to the area, the healing to the area. And that was one of the, especially with professional athletes, I've heard stories of where they actually draw blood from your body and shoot it back into that area, for the collagen and everything to help repair the Achilles. Yeah. So,
yeah.
I don't know, I'm, getting technical or whatever, but it's so true. I mean, you just different types of therapies that the professional athletes have that, right. We don't really have. And that's why they get, they rupture their Achilles and they're back in a year. If we ruptured our Achilles, it would probably take us 2 years to actually get back. I don't know if we'd ever get back like 100%.
Another good thing to have is, it's called a Bosu ball, B-O-S-U, and it's about the size of this table. It's a round kind of affair, and it's just like a half a ball. Mm-hmm. You stand on this, and it's inflated, and you stand on it and you wiggle around a little bit, and it really loosens everything up. I do squats on that too, so I'll take two 15-pound barbells and squat like that. That's a real challenge. Mm-hmm. But you can do squats without the weights.
See, John thinks he's on TV and you can all see him. He's on the radio. We can see him.
Anyway, it's called the Bosu.
Yeah, perfect form, by the way.
And I work out on that almost every day. Yeah.
Well, but the point I was trying to make, Delaz, is that you're taking time off and resting your body, yes. But you are still going to be moving around. You're not just lying on the couch and eating bonbons over the next couple weeks.
And I want to get into kind of like a weightlifting program, maybe lighter weights because, heavier weights are for bodybuilding, lighter weights are for building flexibility. One of the things that I've read is a lot of times people get injured from that because, they go from lifting 20 pounds up to 150 pounds right away. They get injured, and really it's for bodybuilding, it's all about the range of motion. A lot of times people aren't even doing the lifting right and they get injured from that. So just, as I get older, to keep more flexibility in my muscles, because as runners, you can feel, where 20 years ago you were able to sprint pretty easily, 20 years later, no, your muscles are tighter. You can't really sprint like you wanted or, you used to be able to. But I am so encouraged by a lot of these older runners that I see out there, older than me, and they're, some of them are actually winning races, like I mentioned in my first interview with Alana, Kurt Backus, 50 years old, and he's running 17-minute, 5Ks, winning races, and it just goes to show you that if you take care of your body, you eat the right things, you keep yourself stretched, obviously, a lot of times the guys that are winning races, they're, not heavy. They're, their bodies are, look like rail thin, and everybody like kind of looks at them, oh, you look unhealthy. No, that's really probably the way you should look,
Right.
know?
Yeah.
But it's just encouraging to see those people, even 70-year-olds, out there just winning their age group and just doing these types of things. Just to me, it's just, it's
Well,
great.
I really encourage this because for the last couple of years, I've been writing blogs for the senior citizen community. And I've been writing them for the adult children of the senior citizen community. And sadly, too many adult children think that their senior parents really should be sitting around either their home or senior homes, basically doing nothing. And the reality of it is, seniors have a very long life to live. My mother lived to 96 and a half years young. Her last 2.5 months, she didn't even know she was dying or ill. Even though she was bedridden and blind, she had no concept of it. And the more active seniors are, the happier they are, and the more cognitive they are. And if you keep yourself moving and keep yourself active, you can live a long, healthy life. And when I realized that last year when I was with my mom, that I was healthy, what was I doing if I wasn't going to keep taking care of myself? Yes, I was exercising, but I wasn't doing the right exercises. And so that's when it dawned on me, hey, I was spending 2.5 months with her at her independent living facility, and it was like, I don't want to end up like some of these people just sitting in a dining room, at 96 and a half years old.
Yeah.
I want to be the one who's running around dancing and doing jumping jacks.
Right.
And there were some that were doing that.
Or maybe running 5Ks.
And running 5Ks,
Yeah, there you go.
absolutely. And so when I realized that I could heal my leg and do that and offer it up to other people, it's like, I'm going to do that. Whether you do mall walking or park further away in the parking lot and walk into the grocery store, whatever it is you can do, or stay in your home where you have steps and walk up and down to your bedroom, do what you can do. Make your life the best that you can be. You don't have to be relegated to sitting on the couch and being a couch potato.
Right.
You can do couch to 5K or couch to the grocery store.
Jeff Galloway is an Olympic marathoner, and he's got a very good book on this called Running Until You're 100. He's got probably 20, 30 books, but that one is right on
His was
point.
one of the first books I got back when I
Jeff
started running in
Galloway.
1991. Yeah, I followed the Galloway training method for the first 10K. First race I ever did was the Revco 10K back then in 1991. His was the method that I used.
Yeah,
You
the
know.
run-walk method.
Yeah.
Did you walk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't walk the race at all, but I was surprised with how quick I did the race, especially never racing before. And I only started running. The race was in May. I started running in February and ran the 10K.
Yeah.
But I had dropped. I was younger then too, so I dropped a lot of weight and just felt great. But just reading his method and saying, okay, because his is kind of like the couch to 5K or whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
and following that method really helped me.
I ran the Cleveland Marathon one time, and I had read his book, but for some reason I decided I'm going to try the run-walk method during this marathon, just for the hell of it. I ran my second fastest time. I ran 3 hours flat
Wow.
on run-walk. So I ran between the water stops. I ran for a mile and then walked for a minute. Ran for a mile, walked for a minute. It gives your legs a break.
Yeah, it's almost like doing like your sprint workouts,
Yeah.
Do your sprint, walk a little bit, do your sprint.
Yeah.
Well, John, I want to thank you, and hopefully you'll come onto the show again, because I know there's a lot of different things that we probably didn't even get to talk about that I'd like to pick your brain on. So, and I'm sure everybody else out there too. Everybody kind of goes to John for advice
I love
through the Medina County Roadrunners, So it's great. He's very knowledgeable, reads tons of books. I'm sure he watches all types of YouTube videos. I think would actually even coach people if they wanted him to coach them. So
Yeah.
That'd be terrific. I also want to remind people that we are a drop-off center for slightly used running shoes. And we have the drop-off box here is going to charity. So you can donate those shoes here. But give us a call at 440-526-1530 before you drop off the shoes at the station, because we are not here 24/7, obviously. But we'd love for you to do that. And we also are going to do another show tomorrow, another special show. This show was scheduled a couple weeks ago with Dr. Jennifer Wurst. But due to technical difficulties, we lost that show. So Laz is going to do that show on behalf of Alana, and Dr. Jennifer Wurst is going to be here. So we're going to do an extra special running with Alana and Laz tomorrow with Dr. Jennifer Wurst tomorrow morning, and we will then replay it again during the week so we can do double coverage, because that was newclevelandradio.net's error in losing a show. So we apologize. Again, John, thank you for being here.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for
And
having me.
will you come back and play the ukulele for me?
Well, I can't go that far, but
Well, you can sing Irish songs.
it's quite a challenge. I'm telling you, it's rocket science. I don't know.
not as easy as running,
I
right?
think I bit off more than I could chew this time.
Well, we might have him come back and sing Irish songs, because he told me he can
Right
sing.
before Christmas, we'll get him to sing a
Hey,
song
yeah.
for us.
Right before the
I
holidays.
might even wear a hula dress.
Woo! Well, everybody have a great day on this Thursday, December the 7th.